We're all here to help each other. And when you have a bigger platform, to be able to utilize that platform and influence more people, whether it's, financially, whether it's just with moral support or your time or whatever it may be, it's important to help other people.
Shawn, when were you aware that you had a platform as a professional baseball player and that you could do good for others?
Yeah, it was a different time when I played. I mean, now the platforms are, pretty easy to come by. If you're a high school prospect, you get a bunch of followers, right? But I think once I signed, my agent was Jeff Morad. Back then it was Steinberg and Morad, who, kind of a legendary.
They were my agent.
Duo. Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's right. They were your agent. Yeah. So you know them well, and it was big for them to give back right from the get-go.
Yes.
That was a big part of, and that's something that attracted me to. I was 18 years old, but it still attracted me to them. And when I signed with the Blue Jays, I donated a little bit of money to Stanford's baseball program because I signed and left them hanging a little bit, and also to a children's charity for breakfasts in Toronto for kids that had a hard time getting access to breakfast. And I just felt like that was the start of the platform for me, is when I signed as a first round draft pick, and all of a sudden I was on a different path that I always dreamt of. And I know once you're in that place, other kids are dreaming of being in the same position that you're in.
I mean, at 18 years old.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome.
To have that kind of perspective.
Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was...
Were you raised that way, maybe? Is that part of it? Is that the be philanthropic and charity?
Yeah, I think so. And I think also I always felt a little bit uncomfortable. Like, I always felt, even when I signed big contracts and everything, I always felt sort of undeserving in a way, where it's like, okay, why am I'm just a normal guy, and all of a sudden I have this, there's another guy on my high school team that, put up great numbers and didn't project as well and didn't have that. So you kind of always feel, I think, why me? And so I think when you have that attitude, it's easy to appreciate it. And I was always a big fan of baseball and sports. I was a huge fan. So I think I came at it from like, wow, I'm actually here. And it's a lot easier to want to give back when you feel like that.
And that's really giving back sort of off the field, right? And which is like massively important. There's so many great causes that are out there. But today, the people have this this platform, this visual platform, because of social media and everything else. Everything's photographed and everything's videoed. That they feel like they maybe need to express themselves on different movements. And there's a lot of people, a lot of fans out there. Just play baseball. We don't want to hear about your political stance. We want to hear about this.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah, stay in your lane.
Right.
What do you think about that? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think it's tough. I think it depends on your personality, right? Some people, when I was playing, I mean, I think just for my own success, I was more of a, just focus on, playing and working hard, and don't kind of get too controversial. That was kind of my attitude. The charity side, that's a different story. Like going to children's hospitals and doing those types of things. Like I always felt like that was what I wanted to do, things that would, help people that looked up to me. But in terms of having a big opinion on, the politics and all that, I sort of stayed away from that. But I respect guys that go after it, because, you look at someone like LeBron James, and he's pretty polarizing, I think, because he has a lot of opinions. I mean, he's, the greatest player, of his generation, and he has a lot of opinions. And I think that's going to pull people one way or the other. And another, like Jordan, was much less likely to get into the politics. And
I don't remember him doing any of that.
No, I know. I think he was more like, I'm going to focus on basketball and building his brand, and did a tremendous job of that. So I think it's just based on personality.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's about who you authentically are. And LeBron obviously authentically, believes in what he's talking about, and that's his right to voice his opinion. And I don't know that Michael Jordan was that type of person. Because there's some people who will tell you that not saying anything is also a political statement, right? There's the being apolitical is weirdly political.
And some people are pressured into doing things that they
maybe not want.
May not want to do.
Right.
Because of the situation.
There's a great example of that. I watched a documentary about Pele, the soccer player, and he was playing in the World Cup during a time of huge unrest in Brazil, and was roundly criticized for not really taking up the cause of his people. And God just wanted to play soccer. He was a soccer player. He wasn't a world statesman, or he just it really wasn't anything he knew enough about or really thought about enough to really make an impact, but he was criticized for it. So I think it just comes back to being authentic. Whoever you are authentically, that's what you should do. So there's no right answer, I guess, is the point.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But I do think the area that is crucial for athletes is when it comes to supporting different causes. Right?
100%.
I think that's it's so important, and it doesn't. There's some guys who they want to have their own foundation, do all that. That's great. There's others who I was more along the lines of hey, I want to support things that have to do with children, and anything that I could do. If the Dodgers asked me to go to a children's hospital, I'll go to children.
Where'd that come from?
I think because I was a kid, I looked up to. I know how you look at the players when you're a kid. So I know the impact it had. I hated going to do a high school visit because they're ragging you, and it's that different. But if you're going to meet with 10-year-olds or whatever, they're just you see in their eyes what they think. Oh my God, I can't believe this guy I watched on TV is here talk, and that type of thing I think is really impactful, right?
It is.
So I think that's probably where it comes from. But it's also easier because it's okay, there's all these great fight against different diseases and things, but one thing that I know that I authentically care about is trying to impact kids to make better decisions, or kids who don't have breakfast to have access to breakfast, or whatever it is.
And then your interaction with those recipients of your generous giving and time, how did that change you?
I think you get as much out of it as they do. I mean, the ones that were always the hardest for me were the hospital visits. I'm sure you did a bunch of those.
Yeah.
And,
really.
No, it's and talking to the families and they just have the parents of these kids have a different look on their face than you see anywhere else, right? Yeah. And it's you go there and hey, this kid's struggling, but if I can just go and just be 10 minutes of a bright spot in their day, that's huge. And so that you leave there and it's heavy, you're exhausted when you when you get out of there.
I did a thing in Cleveland when I was with the Browns called Paul's Pals, and early on I went to Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital, cancer kids with cancer, and I remember going to this one and interacting with this one kid who was in the bed, seemed fine, and here I am 22 years old or something, and had a great conversation with him, a really cute, smart, bright kid, and I come back a couple weeks later, he's gone.
Yeah.
I'm like, where's PJ? And they're like, oh, you didn't hear he didn't make it. And it was so impactful for me being at that young age of 22 to see that. You're not thinking about life and death. You're trying to throw touchdown passes.
Right.
I think when you guys were doing that, the other person that you guys were really great, providing great comfort for, was the parents. You mentioned the parents, because the kid, you've given them that little moment of brightness. And for a parent who's seen their kid struggle as much as a kid who has cancer would be struggling, that's just that moment of joy that you gave that kid meant so much to the parents as well, because there was nobody else who could give them that joy.
Well, they're dealing with the day-to-day. They're dealing with the day-to-day stuff.
There's a guy here in San Pedro whose daughter is maybe 4 or 5 years old, just went into remission from leukemia about a week ago. For the last 2 years, this guy's been living just hell. Watching his little baby go through leukemia treatments. And so to give that comfort there's nothing more that you could have done in your life that's more important or better.
I always felt, and maybe you can weigh in on this, Shawn, I always felt, me personally, it was almost an obligation.
Yeah.
To do, because of what you said earlier, how we've been given so much you know, in our lives, and there's so many people out there that are battling, you know, and to whatever you can do to brighten their day,
Right.
you should do it.
Yeah, and particularly going to a children's hospital, like I don't want to say I dreaded it, because it was like that's the wrong word, but I was like, I knew it was gonna be such a heavy day, so I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I got it
Emotionally.
I know, so it's like you almost have to gear up for it,
Right.
and then you go and it's just like you just it's so meaningful and you feel so good helping out, but it's just like it's so hard to go and see these kids and all that, so you're just like, Jesus, this is something that, you know, that's you see it like a couple weeks out, like I'm gonna be going, it's gonna be a rough one. So it's like, you know, it's like going to a memorial service or something like that. It's like, you know, even if someone that you cared about, you know, you just kind of, it's like the same kind of feeling, like it's something I got to do, and I know it's going to be powerful, but it's like those things they stick out on the calendar, like, okay, that's going to be a tough day, and that was kind of how it always felt and still feels when I do go.
But it was worth it.
I mean, 100%. Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I mean, those memories really stick in your brain too. And, you know, they say that memories are much stronger if there's emotion attached to, you know, whether it's a big play that you had, a lot of emotion, or, you know, something with your kids being born or whatever it is. But those are ones that stick in your head, or individual interactions with those kids in the hospital.
Yeah, and you guys, that was the greatest gift that was given to you of being pro athletes, is the fact that you got to go and be that person who gave that impact. Because if I showed up, they'd be like, oh, that's nice of you to visit, but who are you? Right. Whereas a guy walking in with a Dodger uniform or a Cleveland Brown or a USC Trojan uniform, that is the gift that you were given, as being great athletes.
Yeah, and some guys are I'm sure you had teammates that were just amazing, like how natural they are, and they can interact with the kids, and I'm sure the kids don't feel like there's anything wrong with them, right? And others, you know, it's tough, and you can see on their face that they're just so uncomfortable. So I think early on for me, it was sort of an effort to try to just interact and be there in the moment and not, you know, think about what's really going on.
Was it easier when you had children?
I think it was harder in some ways.
Was it?
It was easier and harder. I mean, you know how to talk to kids better, but then it's like, it's just, I couldn't, it's hard to control the emotion.
Yeah, because you're looking at your healthy kids, and
yeah.
you're talking to someone that's not in good shape.
Yeah, and so yeah, I think in some ways it was like a whole different ball game at that point. But yeah, I think I could relate to kids.
Did you have a sense of gratitude? Did you have that 100%. Feeling at all? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And then you hear some, you know, stories later on that the kid did well, or like you were saying, some very unfortunate stories. We had one similar story to you, but my wife, we got kind of close to the family and got him a puppy and took him to see a play, and actually the kid died the next day after the play. It was like his last.
Wow.
But he really wanted to go see The Lion King, right?
Yeah.
And so we took their whole family, and it was really hard. It was, my wife still thinks about it. But that's what the family's gonna, look back on their last days with their son, their last moments with their son. He was smiling and clapping and watching The Lion King.
So great.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul.
Yeah.
This is the part where we're supposed to tell people to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Okay, will you please do that then? I mean,
Yeah.
if you enjoy it,
Yeah.
please do.
And if you don't, do it anyways, because we need your help.
We do.
Also, we have a website called GameChangeNation.com. Just go there and subscribe, and you'll get tons of free content.
And what we're really trying to do is create a community of people that love sports.
Yep.
And the great lessons that we learn from sports, but we want to hear from you.
We do. So we're going to have a bunch of social media pages, from TikTok to Instagram to Twitter to Facebook. Instagram, I probably already said all of them. Please join them and tell us your stories. We'd love to hear from you. Oh, and we wrote a book.
Oh,
Forgot about that.
Forgot that.
The book is called Through the Tunnel. It's available on Amazon now. If you go straight down here to this link that you can see below us, you will be able to purchase it. We'd love it if you could do it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.